test. Alrighty, so top tier, medium, south spawn. This south spawn always has the advantage to win this area because if you send a speed tank over here, you can really counter those guys. So that's typically the first move that I would do, would be to come over here. You'll see a lot of guys from the south push north, but that's really the only play that this north has. So if the north is smart, they're going to cut you off, prevent you from going up here. Because remember, you can spot from over here or over here and then get a lot of free damage as people climb through here. So you really want to avoid doing that from the south. This is where you really have the advantage. So the way that this map should be played is basically the south attempts to win the southwest, the north attempts to win the northeast, and then either team or both teams attempt to cross through the middle in order to progress any further. You don't want to progress north on this west side, and you don't want to try to progress south on this east side. But let's see what your team does. Again, as we say many times, 30 seconds into the game, 60 seconds into the game, you want to look and see what your team is doing. Looks like you're going to do this H-line camp, which I'm not really much of a fan of. I don't think it's very effective, particularly in the early game. Again, remember, you can make the difference in winning or losing over here, and that's really important to know. Whereas there's not going to be a whole lot other than the people who are sitting on the other side sniping, right? You're not going to be able to do a whole lot here. And it's never really any bother or any reason to deal a lot of damage to the guys that are sniping. You want to deal damage to the guys that are actually going to be fighting for areas that are strategically important. Like that ends up being more important than damaging snipers, as it turns out. Your Panther does look like he is going that way, so that is fantastic. And you'll see a lot of this where you get a lot of these H-line snipers. It's not something that you really will ever see anyone do effectively. They came across in the early game, which I'm not much of a fan of, but they can't, again, be very effective there. It's just basically sniper v sniper, and neither one is going to be very effective. Again, remember, if you're over here, you can get shots into these guys as well as these guys. So in terms of getting early damage, playing through this middle is not effective, right? But if you're over here, like on this side, if this Panther wasn't smart enough to go over here, but if you were over here, then you get to farm all this damage, right? Whereas now you're just kind of hoping that this 4502 overplays his hand, so you get a shot of damage. So again, at this point, you haven't done anything to actually help your team, and that's important to note. There's a reason why these types of back positions aren't super productive in the early game. You don't want to try to trade one for one with the IS. I guess unless... Oh, he just shot though. He just shot. Oh, my man. And then see how they've moved forward on this side over here? That's a big problem, again, because this is where you make a difference in winning and losing, by hammering these guys. And again, it's not just the fact that you're helping your team. You would farm a lot of damage there. So you always gotta keep that in mind. Like, that's an incredibly good area to go to. It's incredibly powerful both for your team and to get you early damage. Whereas the guys that you see camp this H line typically don't do a whole lot. So they're being aggressive and pushing in through here, which is good for them because you guys are mostly campers. But like, these guys can probably be squashed. You're not going to really be able to counter against these guys that are on this H line very effectively, as you're noticing. And I'll keep reiterating this. You're going through these long periods of time where you're just kind of like, hey guys, what's up? What's up? And to this point, right, you've done 3 shots of damage. 3 shots of damage, and every single one of those shots of damage was to a bottom tier tank. So you gotta be more effective in the early game. You don't want to let these things be decided without you. When you're the top tier, be the big dog. Yeah, you're taking like some real hope shots now. You're like, oh, okay, that's actually a good shot. But only because your T28 is a little YOLO. And again, I just want to point out, you guys did win here eventually, but if you just came over here, not only would you have helped your team, but you would have dealt a lot more damage already. And you want to be careful pushing through here like this. You can shoot him in the lower glaciers there. You always want to be careful about shooting that bit of the turret, even when it's a side turret, because if he like scrolls back a little bit, the way that the turret is like curved out in the front, or curved in the front, so you need to be a little bit careful. You also need to be a little bit careful playing this corner, because those guys in the back can shoot you. Oh, he's making a run for it. That was a nice shot. I'll give you that. Then run away! Again, you probably don't want to run away with your ass there. You want to run away, just back it out. Because especially showing your ass to an artillery is not a good thing. They can still potentially pen you if you give them that type of armor. So again, see the position that they have right there. It's not good to play up underneath them over here. It's actually better like to come around through this side, or even on the Tiger P side. Like you're not, it's going to be difficult. Although I guess now that that guy's down, you can probably get some shots here on this guy. Oh, but he's down also. Yeah, you're better off going to the other side. And again, this is one of those things where you'll notice that a lot of times your team will all be on one side, and you don't want to be on the exact same side as everyone else.
We didn't even scratch them.
And again, this is a situation where if you came all the way out here at this point, it would probably be better. The T-25 Pilot isn't like a super fast tank, but you can do it. No, don't shoot upper glaciers. Don't shoot upper glaciers. So when, oh man, he backed off. So when you shoot that guy, just shoot him in the lower glaciers. The upper glaciers is the only part of his armor that's relatively strong. Or do what I do. Why bother aiming? If the fully aimed shot's gonna miss and the fully unaimed shot's gonna hit, you might as well not aim.
Penetration. Let's find another target.
Right, and at this point, you want to try to help get that guy down. Again, remember the position of the Scorpion, though.
Enemy is hit.
I wouldn't worry about the 101 as much as I would worry about getting this guy down without getting shot by the Scorpion.
Enemy armor is damaged.
Nicely done, and then just slowly back out. Oh, he's right on that side of the hill there, but let's go ahead and slowly back out. Again, you're doing a little bit too much with your ass. There's never any reason for you to turn around there. You could have just backed out of there and been absolutely fine. You can get free shots of damage on this guy. Unfortunately, your team insists on pushing up this side. He is also in the ass program. And again, at this point, like when you consider the options, it's going to be difficult for you to push the Scorpion G. You know the SU-101 is one-shot though, so if you're going to push, what you probably want to do is island hop through this middle, but shade over to the east to try to catch the SU-101. You're playing, you're like, I'm not entirely sure what you're doing right now. Like you're watching your Tiger walk off to the death, and you're kind of going backwards. Like this guy's AFK. He's not going to be anything other than a canary for you. And so you have two options here, right? You can either fight the one-shot SU-101 or the 900 health Tiger, and you'd rather fight the one-shot SU-101. And again, what you don't want to do is get caught out in the open where the Scorpion can hit you. And you keep doing you're driving around a lot, like indecisively. Like it's not really gonna be super easy for them to push you. But I'm not entirely sure why you think that you need to take this back route. Like, if your plan is, okay, let's just go get the SU-101. Just drive straight across there and go get the SU-101. You don't need to go all the way to the back, because it's just wasting time. You can get up underneath them if you want on that side. Or you can go away from him, really. I mean, there's not really a whole lot of pressure. So the whole thing is you got to move laterally in one direction or the other. You can't just sit back here, because otherwise they will eventually just whittle you down. And eventually they're going to pick up that tiger and just be able to shoot him, even though he's AFK. So you do want to get a little bit closer to him when you can. Oh, look, he's caught onto the AFK tiger. Well done. The Artie has shot at your tiger. Oh, there's the scorpion. Scorpion's also shooting at the tiger. Get him! AFK guys, owning for you. You can switch to HE for that. He's stuck out there, right? So switch to HE, hit him in the face. Yeah, that works. And then at this point, right, this tiger isn't going to be the major problem. What you probably want to do is come out through here and see if you can get the Artie down. Because this tiger is still going to be your canary, so you can let that guy spot for you. And then you want to let him do some work for you. Well, Artie's still shooting at him. That guy's being an excellent distraction pinata for you. So go and kill the Artie, and then you can come back and kill the tiger. No, my man. Like, the tiger is not a burner. He doesn't have a whole lot of speed. Like, he's not going to be able to cap you out. Alright, so let's pretend, though. Let's pretend that this was your only option. Let's pretend that there was no Artie. Let's just say it was you versus the tiger. With your canary tiger. Fine. That's fine. You still, if you want to fight this guy, you still don't want to be here. What you want to do is come back over here. Because basically you can still outrange this guy, but you can't outrange him from where you're at. So at this point, you'd just be like, alright, well, get on the cap, and then I'll kill you on the cap. Which is kind of, it looks like what you're thinking. No, you don't really want to charge him. That's not going to be necessary. Again, he will volunteer. He'll be like, hey, I'll do it. I'll go out in the open. Don't worry, I'll do it. If your enemy is volunteering to go and die, let them go and die. I mean, it's cool. Like, there's no need for you to chase him, because he will come out on that other side and be like, do. Hey, look, there's a circle over there. Now, I mean, you can make the he even missed that guy. You can make the argument that, and again, so this is one of those things where it's understand what it is that you're afraid of. You're not really afraid of the tiger. You don't want to get hit by the Artie. So you can get right up on that tiger. There we go. Take cover.
We've lost a track.
Oops. I was gonna say take cover over there, but you wouldn't have had time to take cover over there either, so. Them's the breaks. Alright. And then all you gotta do now is find the Artie. And again though, I just wanted you to notice that this guy here helped you out more than pretty much all the rest of your team. But the point is that it wasn't like this tiger was going to break you. Like, if you just allowed him to kill this guy, because you weren't going to be able to save, there's no rhyme or reason to saving an AFK guy per se. Like, you shouldn't sacrifice health to save an AFK guy in the vast majority of cases. But once that guy dies, that guy will drive out there, and then you can just shoot him from relative safety or from distance where he can't see you. And again, that's one of the things when you're in the medium tank and your opponent's in the heavy tank, you want to exploit that difference. You want to exploit the fact that he is relatively blind to you. And then here you basically want to surf some ridges, see if you can pick up where he's at. He pretty much have to direct hit you. So you're sort of doing it. Okay, then go up to this next hill over here. You just drive forward over there. You want to drive up to this hill right here on this side so that you can see if he's over there, because that's the next important spot. Like coming up here isn't really useful, because he's not going to just be sitting out in the open like right here like, hey, come shoot me. He's going to be off on one of these sides, so you don't want to necessarily drive straight there as much as you want to go and actually actively look for him. And again, you do want to play these hills, so you still want to come over on this hill over here to look around that way, right? So basically what I would do is I would come over this hill, I would clear this side, and then if this side was clear, then I come back through here and then peek in here. Oh, why'd you stop?
We're dead for it. Everyone get out.
So anyways, my point is that whenever you play these types of situations where you against an RD, you basically want to play these hills, right? And you know there's a certain number of places where the artillery might be, and you know that this is one of them. I mean, you obviously understood that. Now the thing is that you didn't play like you thought he was there. You played like, oh, he's not there, and he was there. Like every hill that you play, like when you came up over on this hill over here, right, way back here, you played that like he might be on the other side. You peeked, and you stopped, came back, then you went forward, right? That's the right thing to do, because he might be there, and if he's there and you're just like, charge in, then he's gonna get you, right? And then the problem with what you did here, though, is that you assumed, for whatever reason, that he wasn't there, and then you got surprised that he was, and it's like, well, that's why you're looking there. The other thing is that, so not necessarily, you wouldn't have necessarily, even if you didn't stop there, you wouldn't have necessarily gotten out. But the whole thing is that when you're playing against artillery, you always want to be moving laterally to them. You always want to be moving across their fire, because that makes it significantly more difficult for them to hit you. But my point is this, right? If you had played this a little bit more conservatively, where you just basically proxied that guy or came over this hill where you could peek, right, and then back down away from him, then you could have come up forward, right? Now that you know that he's there, then you could have come forward here and just basically shot into his little wings from the side, and there wouldn't have been anything that he could have done about that. And that's the thing about artillery, like particularly when you're playing corners like this, right? If you are, let's see if I can do this with the camera. Like, so if you play this ridge area right here, right, then you can actually shoot these little wings on this thing without him actually being able to shoot you. But so anyways, there was a number of things. I don't really feel like playing this area in the early game is necessarily fruitful, and you'll notice that exactly what you did, right? They pushed some guys in here, and you were completely ineffective. You got a couple shots on a couple of tier 7s over here, which is why I always think that it's better to hammer over here first. It'll clear it out. Your team still died because they tried to push up through this side. I thought you did a reasonable job of clearing in that mid game, but then again in that late game you kind of drove around here and you came back, and then you drove over here, then you came back, and then you drove up over here. There was a lot of driving around the back line, and I don't know that I was necessarily down with that. But you were absolutely saved, because the MVP on your team was AFK Tiger. AFK Tiger straight owned the enemy team for you. Without him, you guys would have just gotten killed. You steamrolled. Like, it wouldn't have even been close. And that's sort of the sad thing to note about that guy, but it's true. Like, he was a huge difference in winning and losing this game, or moving you towards winning this game. And without AFK Tiger, yeah, you probably would have gotten smoked. because he absorbed a lot of damage for you. He coaxed a lot of guys out to sit out in the open so that you could own them, and that's an important role to play for an AFK guy. Yeah, the real heroes. All right, so if we look at the stats, wait, there we go. Your team didn't do too badly. I mean, they did okay. Well, their Panther actually did a pretty good amount of damage. No, mainly because he kept firing. Pretty significant when you can actually shoot your gun. I think he had more shots than... Oh, he didn't have more shots than you did. He already almost had more shots than you did. That's actually pretty bad. But overall, I mean, I thought you played it fairly well. But again, it's one of those things where if you are a little bit more active, if you get a little bit more damage in that early game, it makes it easier for your bad players to... everything starts rolling downhill from that point. And so that's what, especially when you're the top tier on a map like that where you have a distinct advantage going in one direction, you want to make sure that you exploit that, because every time that you don't, your team is losing a little bit more health, a little bit more tanks than they need to. And unless you're like, it would have been one thing if you were just like being hella effective on that H line, or yeah, the H line, and you were just owning kids, but that wasn't the case. I mean, you had 3 shots of damage like 3 minutes into the game, and as a top tier tank, that's and you only got those damage because like the IS pushed in through the 3 line, 4 line, whatever. I don't know. I don't feel like you played that poorly, but that was certainly a game that you could have carried. So, GG, nice try. Oh wait, we should look at the. We should look at what that. Where are you, Tiger? Oh, it's not that Tiger. Oh man, he didn't even get any spotting damage. I think he takes an experience penalty anyways because he was AFK the whole game, but very sad because that guy was. As it turns out, and again, that's one of those things though where the enemy team really. Oh, damn it. Yeah, sometimes it does that when I switch windows. Anyways, I was saying is that despite the fact that your AFK Tiger didn't get any spawning damage or anything like that, he actually you benefited from the fact that their team thought that he was somehow the best player on the map, because the Scorpion killed himself trying to shoot the Tiger by driving down into a position where you can own him. The SU-101 got killed trying to shoot the Tiger. The Tiger 1 got killed trying to shoot the Tiger. The GW Panther was shooting at the Tiger while you were lit. So I always find that interesting, but you always need some help from your opponent in situations like that. Yeah. Sometimes it does that when I switch windows. Alrighty, so let's go on to the next. That was an entertaining one though, PixiePincher, so thank you. Alrighty, so next we will look at Play for Fun's 34-100 game on Westfield. Yeah, sometimes when I start the replays also the mic cuts out. Not entirely sure why. But basically if I switch windows and then switch back, it's like, oh, I'm fixed. Alrighty, so mid-tier, one big RD. So typically speaking, I'll in a mid-tier or most mediums in general, I'll start over through this area right here. Again, I don't really feel like, unless you're going to be super aggressive out here, I don't feel like this is a very awesome place to play. And I don't think that it's a very good place to be aggressive in either, just because there's a lot of open ground. It's one of those things that's pretty easy to cover from either side. And then you want to be careful coming up through this side as well, simply because you'll see a lot of tank destroyers play back on this A line, but if you've ever watched me play Westfield, you'll know that this A line is incredibly vulnerable to getting spotted and then shot through this area right here, which is why you need to have this strong low town presence. So typically speaking, to get to this middle, I'll come up through here and then I'll drive through there. It's something that you can do without getting spotted as long as you don't, you know, follow this road. If you just literally come up through there like that, you'll get through there. Unless, you know, they just completely YOLO through there. Lol at your guy that just drove off the cliff. I wouldn't worry too much about that Roomba where he's at. I say it as he just got thwapped by Artie. And again, though, you'll notice that you have a bunch of guys back here, but those guys will eventually get wrecked. You are going to lose this north, so it's simply a matter of how well you guys can play through the middle south. Looks like they're going a little bit YOLO, so this is where you need to be a little bit careful, because you can't just drive over here and shoot this guy, because then you become vulnerable to this side right now, right over here. And so what you need to decide is this guy going to own us? And the answer is probably not. You've got an IS over there. You got, for some reason, you have an IS over there. And you have a T25 AT back here for some reason. So he's probably not going to get to the RD anyway. So you don't need to kill yourself trying to get him down. And again, as I was saying, is that the danger is that you will, once you shoot this guy, you will get lit from over there or shot from over there. As he moves up like that, though, you can get a shot on him. You just need to stay behind this building. And again, when they're back there, then they're going to own. And then, so when you look at the way that your team is playing, right, this back line, again, as we've said many times, you didn't need to go out that far. Oh, there's going to be people shooting at you. Oh, there we go. There it is. And that's why it's dangerous. Like, you know, when you look at the position of his tank, like, this is not a formidable position that he's in, where he's like, hey, I'm in a Type 58, and there's an IS on one side, and a T25 AT on the other side, and an A43 on the other side. Like, he's not in a position where he's like, oh yes, this is exactly where I want to be. So you don't need to take unnecessary damage, you know, trying to get a hope shot on this guy. You've got more pressing concerns. So the thing is that eventually these guys back here will die, and these guys will start pushing across. So what you do want to do is see if you can figure out, like, is there anybody on this other side of this low town here? And you can do that basically by poking out around this side of the house, you know, just driving through here a little bit. You know, not very far away from the house, but just to see if you get lit. Same thing, poke around through this other side of the house, see if there's anybody around on that side. Because eventually, once these guys roll through here, you can't stay where you're at, because this is not a good position. But interestingly enough, I can't quite manipulate the camera to show it. But if you look at this, my camera's in the way. Okay, so if you look at this bush right here, interestingly enough, this bush right here is fantastic for once these guys actually start pushing across here, because basically you can shoot through this bush right here and use it to camo snipe, and that's sort of the effectiveness of this side. But you need to make sure that you're not going to get lit from anybody on this side over here. These guys over here will not light you. And again, you don't want to You do want to do something here, right? In terms of, let's see if there's anybody right on the other side of this, because you're not getting any shots. And then you have to understand that. So a lot of times when you look at the maps from a grand point of view, like you should be, especially when you're not doing anything, like times like this where you're just like, I don't really have anything to shoot at and whatnot. What you should be doing is like, okay, let's see, how long is it going to take for us to lose this side over here? And then are we going to stalemate over on this side over here? And once we lose this side over here, I can't stay where I'm at, because once I get spotted as they start pushing across here, I'm going to get shot from both sides. And so it's one of those things that I'll look at this and I'll say, okay, you've got probably about 60 seconds, and then you're going to need to move out from this position. You know, depending on how the enemy teams plays, maybe you got 90 seconds. But it's going to be somewhere in that range. Your guys aren't really making a whole lot of progress through here. Like, see where this IS is pushing? He's going to get wrecked trying to climb this hill. Especially, you have to remember that a lot of these heavies are blind. And so one of the things about not just, see, this is absolutely what I wanted you to do, but so what I would do is like just sit here for a second, and if you don't get lit, go out to this bush. If you don't get lit there, then you're cool on that side, right? Because if they got a guy back there, he's way back there, and you're not really worried about him. Because basically what you're doing now is planning for the future. So you've got some guys coming through here, so that's something to keep an eye on. You're doing a little bit too much wiggling. Like, you're not going to get shots at those guys. You really need to stop doing that. Like, you're getting distracted a little bit too easily by the squirrels. Look, there's somebody right there. Okay, so now here's where the big problem is this guy is an extremely huge compromise to your position. Because again, remember, like, once these guys come through here, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. You can handle that as long as you're not lit. The problem is all the Cromwell has to do is sit next to you, and these guys from over here can shoot you. Once these guys get through over here, they can shoot you, and then you're kind of boned. So you need to start working on this Cromwell. You can do it. Just go up there and just shoot him once and then back off. And again, you don't need to go quite so drive into him sort of thing, but that worked. There's an AT-8 on the other side, but you're not worried about the AT-8, so let him be. I mean, if you can't get a free shot damage, so be it. Oh, your jumbo is actually winning over here. I guess you might win that side. So this is where it pays to reevaluate the situation. So like you sit here and look, and you're just like, well, I mean, these sevens have pushed along this outside, so you can get some shots over here. They've now got a lot of dudes over here, but they're actually looking a little suspect on this side now. So I would actually think about maybe pushing it out over there. But right now you can get some shots this way. So before these guys die, you probably want to do that. But you should be thinking about what's going on over here. Oh, look at that! Look at that aim time, and then look at that armor on the T-25. You might as well aim in all the way, man. So you've got an unlimited window right before that IS. No, that IS is not big. And unfortunately, you got no damage there. And again, so reassess the situation. Like that was always going to be a time limited opportunity. Those guys were not very good players to begin with, but right, you know that your guys are winning up here. So it's better to expedite this. Camper's gonna camp, right? And so you never need to make campers more relevant than they are. So if they're gonna camp, let them camp, go deal with the rest of the map, and then come back. And again, what you absolutely do not want to do is get lit by that AT-8, because now all these guys have nothing better to do than to shoot you. And again, like even that T-69, that is not that big of a deal for you. Like that is not the game breaker for you. The game is being won and lost over here on this side. Campers going camp, don't worry about the camps. Like you are getting some damage here, but again, if this is not the breaking point of your team, then I wouldn't really worry about it too much. Although now, look at that Russian accuracy. You ought to be real careful here. So he scrolled back, which is fine. Let him. You guys can clear through this side. Again, you know that they have all of their weight over here. You do ideally want to get the artillery out. If you push more forward, you can get shots on that guy. You know the AT-8 backed off, so you're not worried about getting lit by the AT-8. Man, those guys are not shootable. So you need to get out. I was like, man, that AT-8 teleported. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's the other AT-8. So hopefully your boys can get that 40-43 down. Because that would certainly help you out a lot. Apparently not. And again, if you were over there, you could have done it. So I would drive over there and kill the 40-43. And then you're going to have to defend some base. Yes, the AT-15 is coming this way, but that is ultimately irrelevant. They may or may not push forward. At this point, you don't really have much of a choice. And again, you don't need to drive all the way around to the outside. You should actually drive over to this side so to shoot across here, because he might be moving back at this point. You don't want to be super close to artillery when you spot them, ideally speaking. I was gonna say you might as well take that hope shot and then just drive forward, but sometimes that's why you take the hope shots. And you can push this AT-8, just okay, or your AT-15, but you're gonna want to go back. And again, remember, now that you don't control this side, you need to be a little bit more careful. Right? But you can come back over on this side and defend the base fairly easily. You don't want to hang out in the middle now. You need to go back to the base. Like, it has to be the base. There's no option. You should already be driving back to the base. This is not, you don't care about the AT-8. You do not care about the AT-8. The AT-8 is not hurting you. Although they don't appear to be capping. Which means, though, of course, that they are coming back, so keep that in mind. So you do want to be able to re-obtain this. Again, remember, there's a lot of tanks there that don't really match up well against you. You just don't want to be shot by their friends. So you don't want to play on this outside over here. You want to play on this inside over here. And you want to play through towards your base. The AT-15 will be fine. Unless he gets flanked, but they're too far away. And they don't really have the flanking types. And again, notice how you're straying over to this east side. You actually want to stay over here all the way until you come on over here. And then you can see what's over here. And then if nothing's over here, then you can come back this way. You basically need to clear the edges before you drive through the middle. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a flank. And you are doing the opposite. Hey, your AT-15 spotted somebody. Get after him. Oh, no, aim all the way in. Aim all the way in. You got plenty of time. Aim all the way in. Don't worry about the T-69. Don't worry about T-69. Okay, that's fine. If you're going to do it, just go full bore, my man. Oh, look at that gun. You need to push this guy. No, don't aim at those guys. No. Well, okay, if you're gonna kill him, kill the T-25/2. No, the 25/2, my man. And then I would just pursue this guy. You don't want to get stuck out here. You don't want to get stuck out here. Oh, look over there. He's over there. No, shoot this guy right here. So let's just do the math, right? So you've got one guy at low health and one guy in a non-turreted tank destroyer. They're both reasonably fast here. This guy, you want to see if you can two-shot potentially. I mean, if you can, fantastic. But if not, you can shoot this guy without this guy having an opportunity. That guy's got to push forward in order to get to you. So just keep coming back. Look at that gun depression. Make a run for it, my man. Make a run for it. Oh, auto aim if you're going to do that. You want to be running towards them. No, 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 no. Why? Like, so, this is the thing. Non-turreted tank destroyers are incredibly weak, especially at close range. Especially at close range. This guy is almost dead. This guy is going to take 4 shots. Let's say 3 shots if you really high roll, right? But this guy's almost dead. Let's go ahead and stay out of the firing circle of the E25. So this is what I always talk about, understanding what it is that you're afraid of. And part of this requires experience, and so I understand that. So like, I process this because I've seen this situation before, right? And in this situation, all I do is I defend myself from the E25. I don't care about this guy shooting me. There's nowhere that I can go on this map where this T-43, well, in the near future, where this T-43 cannot shoot me. But there's a lot of places that I can go to outposition this E25, so this E25 can't shoot me. So when I look at this situation, I go, okay, what I need to do is avoid getting shot by the E25 while I'm shooting the T-43, right? So I'll go ahead, and again, this entire time you could have just been auto-aiming the T-43, which is the fantastic use of auto-aim in this particular situation, because you can auto-aim this T-43 and then simply micromanage your position against the E-25. Because the E-25, despite the fact that he's got good mobility, he doesn't have the turn radius to keep up with you at this close of a range. And then see how you round him in the front? That's absolutely not what you want to do. And again, so this is, again, the worst possible situation. The one guy that you can kill, you don't really have a position to take him out, and you're not shooting your gun in the right direction, and that's sort of the biggest problem here. Oh well. Again, though, that's, and I understand that that's something that takes experience, but like, that's something that you, when you see those 2v1s, you're like, oh, I got this. Or you should be saying, oh, I got this. And that's basically, all you got to do is just keep driving in a circle around the E25. And he'll get shots at you every so often, but not before you kill the T-43. What you don't want to do is stop in front of the E25, right? Because there's, again, as I was saying, there's nowhere that you can go that the T-43 is not going to shoot you. So just auto-aim the T-43 and then take him down, and then you'll be fine. So, anyways, in the early game, you came over here, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that per se. Like, I thought you guys were going to lose on this Northwest. I really did. And that, again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, where it's important to sort of reassess the situation. Because that situation where I was like, oh yeah, they're going to be dead in 90 seconds. You know, we looked back later in like 60 seconds, and I was like, maybe they're not. So it's important to be able to reassess those situations. And again, campers go and camp. Like, this is another one of the doctrines that I have when I play pub matches. If I see people camping and I don't need to deal with them right now because there's something else that I could be doing, then I'll go do something else instead, and I'll let the campers camp. Because those guys, they weren't really moving away from this area right here. Like, we can probably look at the distance that those guys traveled, and it was whatever distance it took for them to get there. And so you're never really worried about those guys, you know, coming back to bite you. As your team pushed through here, yeah, go ahead and collect a couple shots of free damage. But there were more exciting and more relevant things going on the other side of the map, and you need to be cognizant of that. So then you switch back here, like, to kill the arty, which is fine. There's no problem with that. And then, again, like, when you come back through here, this is something where they could have easily capped and screened against you and hurt you pretty badly. So let's just pretend, for the sake of argument, just so we can talk about what should have happened. So let's say that E25 got on cap, right, and forced you to come back, and then they basically just had all their guys sniping from the back. So what you do not want to do is just drive along over on this side in order to get spots, because once you spot this guy, he's going to spot you, or you'll get spot from this position over here, and then you'll get shot from everywhere. What you actually want to do is drive back through this middle area here and come back through this side. Now, why? The reason why is because there's hills over here that actually protect you from getting shot from over here. So that's what I was saying, is that when you were driving back was that what you should do is basically play through this middle area here, come over here, clear this area, or just check this area to see if he's going to get on the cap or if he's just kind of hanging out here. And then if he's not, then you can start coming back through this area along this ridge here to try to see if you can pick up guys over there. But that's not how they decided to play it. They decided to try to make it easy for you by driving back. And it was one of those things where, yes, the AT-15 lit those guys like that T-25/2 and the AT-8 that were out here, but the AT-15 was getting hurt not by those guys. He was getting hurt by that E-25 that was shooting him in the butt. And you could have helped by coming out over here to get shots on that guy. Now maybe you would have saved them, maybe you wouldn't have. Maybe the E-25 would have been scared off. Maybe he wouldn't have. But that would have given you an opportunity. That's an opportunity for you to save your teammate. Because again, it's not like these guys over here were breaking the bank. It's not like these guys over here were the ones that were just completely wrecking your team. So that's something to keep in mind. So if we look at the stats, both teams did about even. Look at your AT-15 getting after it. Oh, let's look and see how far those guys moved. So T-25/2. Oh man, he moved 2.5 kilometers. Which AT-8 was it? Let's see, this one moved 0.89, and this one moved 0.88. What? Like for example, compare it to how far your AT-15 moved. Oh man, he only moved 117. That's actually not that far. All right, well, to each his own. Yeah. So, anyways, I thought you did fairly well. Again, the problem with one of the problems with 34-100 is that it doesn't have very good gun depression. So that's why you ran into some issues with some of the shots that you had. Again, it does have a little bit better depression over the sides of the tanks. I think it's by like 1 degree or something like that. So a lot of times you want to, like for example, when you're trying to shoot that E-25, you're not going to be able to shoot them over the front of your tank. But that just sort of goes along with the idea that you don't want to get stuck in front of that E-25. But yeah, again, the other thing that I would definitely recommend is like in situations where you're fighting that T-43, go ahead and auto aim lock on him and then drive around and make sure that you deal with the way that you're driving, because it's more important than aiming. And you actually missed a shot on the T-43 that you probably could have hit if you had just auto aimed instead of trying to manually aim it and time it as well. But GG. Yeah, and again, as I was saying while it was happening, it's one of those things that I see that I recognize because I've played 45,000 games or whatever, and I've seen the situation and I understand, what it is that I'm trying to maximize, and it is target prioritization to an extent, but it's also the other thing that I always harp on a lot to you guys is this idea of understand what it is that you're afraid of, that you understand the concept that you can't really get away from that T-43 or whatever, yeah, T-43. Like you're never really going to be able to position yourself where that T-43 can't get you, but you could theoretically position yourself in a way where the E-25 can't get you, and that's sort of the goal in those types of situations. And I have that YouTube video in the I think it's in the STB on Tundra, where I basically break that down in terms of, okay, this is what I'm looking at. There's a JPE over here. Maybe I can just show that. Let's try it. I don't know. This will be. We'll see if this actually works. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Maybe. Oh, I think it was like in the 50-50 mark. Yeah. Alrighty, this is a game in the Tier 10 Czechoslovakia. Well, let me mute myself. Jump forward to the part that I'm talking about. So it's right here. So anyways, I'm playing through their backline here, and oh man, I can't see the minimap. Alright, hang on, let me fix this. Oh look, that's better. Better-ish. Man, this is gonna be more difficult than I anticipated, because how am I gonna manipulate it? I guess I can just let you watch what I say. I don't know. I don't remember if I said it's something relevant. Let's find out. That big of a deal. So there is a charioteer here. I do have the pat. So the one thing that I do want to know is that if you look at my position, right, we're between some tanks, but we've got some support on the back line there. With me, the JPE is behind, so that is something that we're keeping an eye on. I didn't think this guy would charge me, and this is where I noticed that this JPE is actually looking in my direction, which is interesting considering he's got a bunch of tanks behind him, but you know, to each his own. So that's something that I need to keep an eye on, and so this is the crux of what I'm talking about here. So I'm in free look right now, but essentially what I did when I came up here, I looked to get my shot on the charioteer. I didn't, you know, he might have been thinking that I was reloading, but he decided to charge me in either case, so I have to force the reload. I'm not worried about the charioteer killing me at this point. You know, he's not really going to be able to put out that damage, enough damage before I'm going to reload. But I need to be concerned about the positioning of this JPE 100 because for inexplicable reasons, he is facing my direction. And so this is really the crux of what I want to talk about in you know, we talk about it a lot in the stream, but it's understanding what you're afraid of. Like I know, see how this charioteer is moving in on my position? There's very little areas where I can move where this charioteer is not going to deal damage to me. So I'm not really concerned about the charioteer. See how this 155-55 is up here? He's on high ground. It's actually a little bit difficult from the distance that he's at for him to hit me, just because he doesn't really, those shells don't really, the guns and the shells themselves don't really have, because they have some arc on it, they don't really have good gun depression, you know, or shell depression, however you want to say it. So he actually needs to point his tank down in order to actually get a realistic shot on me. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to keep backing up from this charioteer into this JPE, and that's going to be the focus of this sort of engagement here, right? Where what I'm trying to do is juggle a few different things, and it's a basic prioritization. Now that I realize that for whatever reason the JPE is facing my direction, he is my primary problem, right? I don't care if I get shot by anything else, right? I mean, getting hit by the RD would hurt, especially if he penned, but getting hit by the JPE, that's definitely gonna hurt. I mean, that's the only thing that'll make it so that this charioteer can potentially kill me. Otherwise, you know, the charioteer, doesn't matter how close or how far he is, he's not going to be able to kill me without some significant help from his friends. And so as long as I position myself accordingly, then he's not going to be a problem. And so the reason why I bring this up is because I see a lot of people who fixate on the tank that's closest to them, and that's not necessarily what you want to do. That's not necessarily what you want to do in terms of your defensive micro positioning, especially when you're in tanks that are more fragile, like this 50-51, right? It's not like if I keep my armor pointed towards the charioteer that he's going to bounce, or if I get to an appropriate distance, it's going to increase his chance to bounce. He's going to be able to shoot me pretty much anywhere, so I need to control how much I get shot from everyone else, and then I'll worry about him last. So as far as the prioritization here, the prioritization is this JPE over here, and then this artillery, and then the charioteer, and so I'm not really worried about anything else. And so you'll notice that I back up just a little bit too much there, but so that was not in free look, so I'm actually watching that. So you'll notice that most of this time I'm not actually looking at the charioteer. I'm making sure that my positioning on the JPE is correct, right? Because I know that he's going to get pressure from behind, so he's going to have problems. And then, right, I'm also keeping an eye on that bat chat over there. And then otherwise, I'm not super worried about this charioteer yet. Again, remember, he can't really do a whole lot. See how that JPE is now no longer facing me? There we go. See how he's no longer facing me? Now I can back off a little bit as I need to in order to minimize how much of a shot that this 155-55 is going to get at me. And this is the same sort of situation. Now this guy's not the threat. This guy's the primary, and this guy's the secondary. Simply because I don't want to get hit by the HE shell. But this guy still needs to come down at more of an angle in order to shoot me. He doesn't have the gun depression to shoot me, or the shell depression to shoot me from where he's at. So I need to keep that in mind and try to create a little bit of distance between me. The charioteer does block a shot for the 155 but and he does actually get a shot on me. All right, anyways, so that's what I really wanted to talk about in terms of that sort of defensive prioritization, where it doesn't really matter how far away I am in terms of positioning, but especially for tanks like this, or which way my armor is pointing, or whether I'm even looking at the charioteer or not, like all of that is irrelevant. It's more just about making sure that I'm not getting shot by everyone else while I do that. And that's something that I try to stress a bit when we talk about the stream, but I'm not entirely sure that people catch that, because a lot of that is done sort of in the heat of the moment, where I have to make this calculation of how I'm going to position my tank in any multiple tank engagement. And so it's easier to point it out after the fact than it is while it's happening.